For years, hushed whispers drifted through church hallways, transforming into unsettling rumors and finally erupting into a full-blown storm of controversy. But today, at 50 years old, Pastor Todd Hall's wife has broken her silence in a way no one expected. Secrets that were carefully guarded for decades are finally stepping into the light. And the truth is far bigger, deeper, and more haunting than the quiet murmurs that echoed through the community for years. This is not just the story of a pastor, it's the story of power, faith, deception, and the courage to speak when the truth becomes too heavy to carry alone. Pastor Todd Hall was never an ordinary preacher. He built a name for himself through fiery sermons, emotional revivals, and a presence so commanding that people felt drawn to him as if he carried a divine spark. Many called him anointed. Others believed he was spiritually gifted. His voice, his energy, the way he commanded attention, it all created an image of a man chosen for greatness. He gained followers rapidly, his services overflowed with believers, and his influence spread far beyond the walls of his church. But the brighter the light, the darker the shadow it casts. As his popularity grew, so did the uneasy conversations behind closed doors. Members noticed unexplained trips that didn't match official church schedules, late-night phone calls that he dismissed casually, funds that disappeared on ministry expenses with no receipts or accountability. The church staff felt tension behind the scenes. Meetings ended abruptly. Decisions were made without explanation, and conflicts arose from nowhere. Still, no one dared question him openly. His authority was too strong, his influence too vast. And standing silently beside him through all of it was his wife, a woman who endured more than the world ever saw. Her silence wasn't agreement, it was survival. Years passed, and the cracks in Hall's carefully crafted persona widened. At home, his behavior grew unpredictable. He grew distant, defensive, dismissive, traits that contradicted the compassionate leader he portrayed publicly. His wife noticed the signs, stories that didn't match the timelines, emotional shifts that didn't make sense, phone conversations cut short when she entered the room. Yet, she held the marriage together quietly, believing that love was endurance, and ministry was sacrifice. But silence has a breaking point, and hers came slowly, painfully, but inevitably. The emotional weight became too heavy, the contradictions too sharp to ignore. She realized she was living with two versions of the same man, the public pastor praised by thousands, and the private individual shaped by secrets, ego, and unresolved battles. When she finally decided to speak, her voice carried years of untold stories. She revealed the emotional chaos that had become her reality, the manipulation she faced, the hidden behaviors that contradicted the spiritual image he projected, and the loneliness that consumed her despite being the wife of a celebrated pastor. Her words weren't jumbled or uncertain. They were steady. They were clear. They were the truth she had held inside for years. Her confession wasn't an attack. It wasn't bitterness. It was liberation. She exposed the dual life he lived, the spiritual mask he wore, and the deceptive patterns that had been buried beneath years of applause and praise. Her awakening opened the door for others. Within days, former church members began sharing their experiences. Staff recalled moments of emotional manipulation, unexplained decisions, abrupt dismissals, and toxic leadership behaviors that lingered just beneath the surface. Family members stepped forward, revealing patterns they had quietly witnessed but never dared to expose. Every voice added a piece to a puzzle that had been hidden for too long. Rumors once dismissed as gossip were now confirmed as part of a painfully real narrative. The community was shaken. The image of the charismatic pastor began to crumble, replaced by a portrait of a man more complex and more flawed than anyone imagined. The natural question was, why now? Why would his wife choose this exact moment to speak? The answer was powerful, because secrets thrive in darkness, but the moment they're exposed, their power disappears. And at 50, Pastor Hall had become more than a preacher. He had become a symbol of influence, spiritual authority, and leadership. But symbols must be honest, and honesty requires revelation. The fallout was immediate. Social media exploded with reactions, shock, confusion, anger, heartbreak, and endless debates. Supporters clung to their belief that he was under spiritual attack. Critics insisted that his wife's courage validated years of suspicion. Some people prayed for healing, while others demanded accountability. What made the situation more intense was the polarizing nature of the revelations. Some defended him passionately. Every pastor faces trials, they argued. No marriage is perfect. Others saw his wife as a hero, who finally had the strength to speak the truth. No one risks this much unless the truth is painful. Attendance shifted. Donations dropped. Leaders were pressured to address the situation, but any statement risked dividing the congregation further. Pastor Hall himself faced a crossroads, remained silent, and hoped the storm passed, or step forward and confront the truth head-on. But the scandal raised deeper questions, ones that went far beyond a single pastor or a single church. People began asking, how much power should a spiritual leader have? Why are churches often silent about misconduct? How many families are suffering quietly behind a successful ministry facade? What does accountability look like in a religious environment? And, perhaps most importantly, how can faith communities heal when a leader's truth is exposed? The revelations sparked conversations about transparency, spiritual integrity, and the emotional labor that spouses of public leaders silently endure. Many realized that leadership often comes with invisible wounds that are ignored to keep the public image intact. As for Pastor Hall's wife, her decision to speak brought freedom, but also a tidal wave of emotional and spiritual turmoil. Some called her brave. Some called her disloyal. But no matter where people stood, one truth was undeniable. Her voice changed everything. Her story is not one of revenge. It is one of survival. It is the story of a woman who carried secrets that weren't hers to bear, who supported a husband whose public image overshadowed her personal pain, and who ultimately chose truth over silence. The fallout continues to reshape the ministry. Trust must be rebuilt. Conversations must be had. Healing must be prioritized. The family's road ahead is long and uncertain, filled with emotional landmines that require time and compassion to overcome. But one thing is clear: this is not the end of the story. It is the beginning of transformation, whether painful or redemptive, only time will tell. Every fallen leader eventually faces a choice: deny or transform, hide or heal, silence or truth. And the world is watching closely to see which one Pastor Todd Hall will choose. This story is more than scandal. It is a call for accountability, a reminder that spiritual leaders are human, a lesson in the dangerous gap between public image and private reality. And above all, it is a testament to the power of truth. So now, we ask you, what do you think about the revelations? Was the wife right to finally speak out? And what does this mean for the ministry's future and the community that trusted him? Your thoughts matter. Share them, discuss them, and join the conversation as this story continues to unfold. As the dust begins to settle, a new layer of the story is emerging, one that stretches beyond personal revelations and into the broader impact on the communities that once looked to Pastor Hall for guidance. Many congregants find themselves caught between confusion and loyalty, struggling to reconcile the spiritual experiences they cherished with the troubling truths now exposed. Some recall moments when sermons felt especially powerful, only to now question whether charisma overshadowed character. Others admit that they had sensed something wrong long before the scandal broke, but lacked the courage to speak out. Meanwhile, other pastors and leaders across the region are watching closely, aware that this moment could reshape how spiritual authority is viewed. Some are using the incident to initiate internal reviews, ensuring that transparency and accountability are strengthened within their own ministries. A few outspoken leaders have even commented publicly, emphasizing that no pastor, regardless of influence, should be above accountability, and that spiritual leadership is not a shield from moral responsibility. The emotional toll on the Hall family continues to intensify. Friends describe the household as a place of deep reflection, difficult conversations, and painful realizations. Some relatives are rallying behind the wife, praising her bravery, while others remain conflicted, fearing the long-term damage this exposure might cause. Through all of this, one recurring sentiment keeps surfacing: healing cannot begin until truth is acknowledged. And for the first time in years, that truth is no longer hidden. At the same time, new voices are stepping forward, people who had remained silent for years, but now feel empowered. Some share positive memories of the pastor's guidance, insisting that the man they knew was not the man described in the accusations. Others describe uncomfortable encounters or inconsistencies that, in hindsight, make sense in light of the recent revelations. Every story adds nuance, deepening the complexity of the narrative. The biggest question now is what comes next. Will Pastor Hall attempt to reclaim his public image? Will he step away from ministry entirely? Or will he undergo a transformation that leads to repentance and restoration? No one knows for sure, and speculation continues to swirl across social media and church circles. But what is clear is that this story has entered a new chapter, one defined not just by scandal, but by reflection. Communities are reassessing what it means to trust a leader. Families are recognizing the emotional cost of silent suffering, and individuals everywhere are reminded that even the most celebrated figures can carry hidden struggles as the world watches. One thing becomes in: